Hi, my name is Angelo Lopez. I'm a Filipino-American editorial cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm honored today to be speaking to three great editorial cartoonists. Rick McKee, whose work appears right now in Kegel Cartoons and a Swiss website, which, correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, Nebelspalter, is that right?
It sounds good to me. I say Nebelspalter, but it could be Nebelspalter.
No.
Yeah, it's actually still in print. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Whenever I talk to cartoonists in foreign nations, I pretty much succeeded in mispronouncing all of their. So,
Honestly, I'm not sure, but that's what I'm going with.
okay, okay. David Cohen, for the past 20 years, has been doing editorial cartoons for the Asheville Citizen Times. And Graeme MacKay is, I think, since 1997, has been doing editorial cartoons for the Hamilton Spectator. Today, we'll be talking about their careers as editorial cartoonists as well as their thoughts on Trump's effects on both Canada and the United States. So thank all three of you for taking the time to talk to me. And I'm happy that all three of you have survived this past year. So
Yeah,
So far, so
yeah,
good.
that's
yeah,
the truth.
yeah. So yeah. I guess I guess for my first question, a lot has been happening in the news this past week with both Venezuela and Minnesota. And so I'm just curious, just off the bat, what are your thoughts right now on Trump's deposing of Nicolas Maduro and also the recent shooting of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis?
Who wants to go first? I will go. Well, I don't think there's anyone out there who would say Maduro is a good guy. I don't think there's anybody who thinks, he was legitimately in power. But as usual, there's ways to do things and there's ways not to do things. And I just saw yesterday where the U.S. has put out an alert for, all Americans to immediately leave Venezuela because they have these roving gangs of militias, looking for MAGA people now. So it's kind of backfired on them. And as for Minnesota, uh, I held off for the first, I think, probably 24 hours. I wanted to see the facts before I drew anything. I didn't want to just draw something knee jerk. And if she had intentionally, rammed that ICE agent, I wanted to know that, and that didn't seem to be the case. And so then I looked at lots of video breakdowns, and so that's when I drew my first cartoon. And obviously, a horrible situation, and she was turning away from the guy, and he, fired through her window, and so that's what I went with.
Yeah. Do you tend to hold off on stuff until you find out more? I mean,
Yeah, I try to get my facts straight before I draw anything, and sometimes it doesn't take that long, and sometimes it does. Um, but unless it's something I can say that can be justified, I try to justify, just like these other guys. I try to justify in yourself. I try to justify everything I draw in case somebody asks me about it and tries to pin me down. I have to be able to justify what I've drawn.
yeah, I'm the same way. Sometimes something happens in the news and I just don't have an opinion on it yet and stuff. So
Right,
Mm.
right, right.
yeah.
There's a Substack by a guy named Jeff Tiedrick, who is really spot on. He's very cynical, but I was reading his post today, and he was talking about the situation in Venezuela. Number one, removing Maduro is not changing hardly anything in the
Hmm.
country, and that the oil that is supposedly the richest deposit of oil on the planet is so crude and so the infrastructure is not there. It would take trillions of dollars for any oil company to go in there and extract it. And so they've all said, yeah, no thanks, we don't want to do that. And like Rick said, there are roving militias looking for Americans. And you should get out. It's like a level 4 risk right now for Americans in Venezuela. And as for Minneapolis, it's just a horrible situation.
Yeah.
I've watched the videos, and now this guy is in hiding who shot her. He was it like 3 bullets in her head? And she said, I'm sorry, I'm not mad at you. And he, called her a fucking bitch after he shot her in the head. And her dog was in the car, and she had just dropped her kid off at school. She was just there as an observer, which was totally within her rights. It's just a horrible situation. And I agree with both the governor and the Minneapolis mayor. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess you want the comment from the Canadian here. And I mean, I'm hesitant because it's domestic issues and you have problems in your country, but we're kind of dragged into the Trump world reluctantly, like no other president. I sort of like to harken back to the last time Trump was president. I drew more cartoons of Donald Trump in that first term than I had all the presidents before that from the time I started the Hamilton Spectre in 1997. And now we're just adding on to that. Like the time between the last Trump presidency and now, I could count on 1 or 2 hands how many times I did cartoons related to your president then, Joe Biden. So we're back to this whole nonsense where we're dragged into how he's sort of bringing Canada into his world of his strange world. And so I look at Minnesota. Minnesota is kind of like a province of Canada, basically. They talk the same as we do, and they have a lot of the same problems. They're very progressive minded there, as far as I know. And that whole thing is just, it's, what we saw in Venezuela is, I guess someone said he also brought up some rhetoric about not believing in international law, and it became clear that the rules-based order that's been dominant in the world since the Second World War is now gone. But now we're also seeing with Minnesota, the rule of law is now he and his henchmen in the White House have become sort of the judge and jury of what is, the verdict for cases. And they decided, like, hours after that, this, to use Vance's words, that woman, he said many times, he didn't care that it was a woman of several children. And then you see the subsequent videos, and it just becomes so apparent that this was a woman that was, she's appalled by what's going on in her country, and she died doing what she had by showing up to a protest. And it's an amendment right that is slowly just fading away in your country. And we look down with horror about what's going on in the United States because, an old prime minister said, we in Canada are like a little mouse sleeping with an elephant. So every twitch that, we feel every twitch that happens there in the United States, and we're feeling it like no other time right now. It's just a very sad time.
Well, as an American, I want to apologize to people and stuff. I always
me too.
We love America. I'm married to an American, actually. We own that dog behind you, as you see.
Yeah.
So I have great connections. Most Canadians have a very strong connection with the United States. We always have. And, we feel, this time will pass eventually, hopefully, like it did, 4 years ago or when Biden came in. But that's what we got to keep in mind, is that we right now we resent Trump, but unfortunately it's the American people are starting to get the brunt because we're boycotting your stuff and we're not going to your country. I went to your country once last year. In previous years, I go like 10 times and I dump a lot of money. Now I go to France. You know, if I
Yeah.
want to go away, I go far away now. I don't go across to Buffalo to buy shoes or to eat dinner at, restaurants. I have better places to spend my money. And unfortunately, I'm like a lot of Canadians, and what's happening is so many things with tariffs, and apparently Jack Daniels now has closed down production of bourbon because we're not buying your bourbon anymore, and that's happening in
I
other
didn't know that.
industries as
I
well.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does anyone know that? Like Jack Daniels in Kentucky,
Yeah. I heard
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Yeah.
they have too much in supply because we Canadians drink so much of it because we're that way up. Nothing to do in the wintertime. And I haven't had bourbon in a
I
long
didn't know
time
that
either. So I'm
either.
going back to rye, which is
Oh, okay. Yeah.
produced in Saskatchewan. And anyway,
I'm curious. There have been weeks in the past where the news gets overwhelming in a week, and I'm sure this is going to happen. Do you guys pick your spots just to help your mental health and stuff? I mean, this week there's just a ton of stuff you had to try to absorb and stuff. Do you
Oh
pick
yeah,
your
it's been the longest month, and we're day 11 already, Um, so I don't draw every day. I can't. I have a couple of comic strips that I work on, and um, but yeah, mental health. I mean, you just have to, and that's what they want. They want you to tune it out. They want to overwhelm you with as much of this stuff as they can. Steve Bannon even had a name for it. I can't remember what it was, but
flood
and
the
that's what.
field or something.
Yeah. I don't
Flood the field.
flood the field. That's right, flood the field. And they want people to become desensitized, and they want to get away with so much stuff that eventually people just kind of tune it out. And you have to do that for your own, mental health, and that's how they succeed. But I do have some hope in that I see some Republicans defecting, not a lot, but they can't lose a lot, especially in the House. And you got Marjory Taylor Greene, who, while I still don't trust her, at least she's seen the light on a couple of things. And
yeah
you had Josh Hawley, of all people, vote last week for the War Powers Act, which shocked me.
yeah
Um,
you know
but
you're going into an area I was going to ask you and David about and stuff. So let me ask this question now, since you're going in that area and stuff.
sure, yeah,
You're both in the South and stuff, so I'm assuming that you have some insights that I, as a Californian, don't have and stuff. So part of it, I was going to ask you about Marjorie Taylor Greene and stuff. So for both of you in the South, first question: do you have any insights on Marjorie Taylor Greene's opposition to Trump that maybe I don't have? But the second question: what's the mood right now in the working class and rural Trump supporters in your areas and stuff? Are the
yeah.
tariffs affecting them right now, or?
Um, Not enough. And I lived and worked in Georgia for almost 30 years, so I know the area very well. I think a lot of Marjorie Taylor Greene's opposition is based in the fact that Trump isn't being Trumpy enough, which is a little bit scary. I think she was right on the Epstein files. I think she's been right she's spoken a lot about his cruelty. But then she'll come out and say something, that's just as bonkers and off the wall as she used to be. So, but she's thinned the Republican majority by getting out, and so that's a good thing. As far as in the South, the working class, I don't see uh, them being affected enough. And even if they were, I don't think they'd care. I mean, you have to understand the mentality. It's a cult, and he can do no wrong, and it doesn't matter. And where I live is just this super super red district, and it's Matt Gates's former district before he dropped out in disgrace. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's a heavily Republican area, and So I moved here in the last few years, and when I was in Augusta, a lot of people knew me in Augusta. They knew who I was, and I'm just kind of living anonymously here. I don't want people to know who I am. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, I'm just trying to keep my head down and stay safe.
Yeah, David, you also live in the district with the former disgraced Republican.
Where, where
How
I live,
how are you looking at it?
where I live, it's a blue dot in a very red area. Asheville is probably the most liberal city in North Carolina, but Western North Carolina is 17 counties, and that's pretty much the rest of it is pretty red. So
Yeah,
that's how we get people like Mark Meadows or Madison Cawthorn or Chuck Edwards as our reps. Um, so there, I not really don't have my thumb so much on the idea of what's going on with the Trump voters in the rest of Western North Carolina. But as a Jewish cartoonist who spends a lot of time knocking Trump, I've kind of started getting a little worried about my own notoriety and my own safety. There's been a little bit, a year or so ago, someone sent one of my cartoons to the newspaper, and they'd redrawn on it supposedly a caricature of me with a big hook nose and wearing a Jewish star. And this was when Cawthorn was leaving, so they said, "Well, now who are you going to, jump on now?" And so the paper, and I've been very fortunate in my life. I haven't had very much anti-Semitism directed at me,
yeah.
but the way things are going now, you know, I look, I look under the car before I start, kind of
I'm
kind
sorry
of
you're
how
going
that
through
works.
that. I'm sorry you're going
And
through
as for Marjory Taylor Greene, like sort of like Tom Tillis, my senator who's not running for reelection, they just kind of don't have anything to lose by talking about Trump in a much more derogatory way than they did before. And Marjory Taylor Greene, she did so much bad shit that this is kind of like almost like a foxhole conversion for her.
Mm.
She's leaving, so she doesn't have anything else to lose. She says she's not running for senator or president or anything. And if she is the Christian that she says she is, then maybe she's having some, regrets, and maybe she's having a come to Jesus moment for how she's acting now. I don't trust her any more than I did before, and I'll be glad that when she's gone. But
Yeah,
it's
I
just
guess the reason I'm asking is I don't know her. I know a caricature of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I don't really know her. I'm kind of crossing my fingers that you remember George Wallace in the 70s after he got shot, he changed
yeah.
and stuff. He
Mm.
changed from a real segregationist to something else. But I'm talking about somebody I really don't know and stuff. I don't know Marjorie Taylor Greene, but since you both are in the South, I was assuming you'd know more, but maybe you don't and stuff. But
Well, she kind of is the caricature that you see, but she does seem to be, like I said, and some issues she does seem to be awakening.
yeah,
So I don't know. I don't know what her deal is. I don't know what she's going for.
yeah, only
She said
time will tell, right?
yeah, she said she's not running, so we'll see.
Okay, okay.
May
Well,
I say, may I make a reflection as
oh yeah, yeah,
a
sure,
guy
sure.
from abroad? I look at it much like you. I think she's very much a caricature, uh, but I think we're going to see a lot of that sort of behavior in the months to come because all these people who are affiliated with crazy Trump will have lives. Trump doesn't have much time left on this planet, but these people are going to have to moderate themselves after
Hmm.
being part of this regime. Like, although
Yeah,
I don't know about J.D. Vance, but I look at poor Marco Rubio is the most sensible guy as far as I've known, but he's totally destroyed himself in the past week in his behavior. So I
yeah,
don't know how I guess he's a guy who's running for president, maybe if Trump
Oh yeah.
doesn't hang on. But how? Like he's just bad as them all. And who knows, maybe is Marjory Taylor Greene going to be running for president one day? I mean, is she setting up to moderate so that she's palatable? I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking Rick and David. I don't know either. But one of the things I was asking was because Trump's policies hurt his own supporters.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was wondering if that would have an effect on them changing their minds, but I guess not. So,
No, no,
okay,
not a bit.
okay,
Not a
okay.
bit. And so I like David said, he's in a blue dot in a very red area. I'm in a red dot in a very red area. Uh, so yeah, I'm in the reddest of the red. So yeah,
Okay, okay. Be careful. Be
yeah.
careful. Both of you be
Oh
careful
yeah.
and stuff. So,
Totally.
okay. Well, on that happy note, let me go to Graham and stuff. Um, I asked this question of you, Graham, about a year ago when we last talked, but I'm sure things have changed. So I'm going to ask the same question again that I asked you before. Has the Canadian right gotten crazier in this past year because of Trump? And in general, how has Trump influenced the wider Canadian political scene?
Well, I don't want to bore you with all the nitty gritty of Canada. Like, I mean, I think we're all sort of on the same kind of level when it comes to like Greenland. Like, how much do you know about Greenland? I know nothing. And
Yeah.
yet, apparently there's a little island between Ellesmere and Greenland that is divided, and that actually there's a line that actually delineates Greenland from Canada. It's called Hans Island,
Oh, I didn't
and
know that.
we share a border with Greenland. Who'd have thunk it? But that we
Mhm.
do. But that's all I know about Greenland. Although I will say this: Greenland is full of Indigenous people, and they have many of the same problems that we have dealing with our own northern communities and that sort of thing. And the funny thing is, in this whole discussion about taking over Greenland, the Indigenous kind of cause has not come up once, as far as I
Of
hear
course.
from. It's nothing. There hasn't been any learning or anything of the past, and most of the people who are in Greenland are Inuit, and they've had their own battles with Denmark. And you want to take that over, well, you're going to take over a lot of issues. But it obviously doesn't matter with this administration. But
Yeah.
you want to talk about the Conservatives? I'll give you in the nutshell. The Conservatives are here. Obviously, they're under a lot of influence by Trump. It's like what you find in Great Britain and France and in Australia. We have a guy by the name of Pierre Poilievre who flubbed the last election. We had a federal election back in February last year, and he's basically built up his whole career demeaning Justin Trudeau. You all know Justin Trudeau. He was here for like 10 years, and he was very popular, and then he grew very unpopular, and he brought in the carbon tax, and his slogan, Poilievre's winning slogan, was "Axe the Tax," and he's very much like Trump in that and a lot of the conservatives who are very much denial of climate change and that sort of thing. And I'll credit Justin Trudeau. He put a price on carbon, which I think most progressive countries are doing. That has gone now. It was obviously affected by Poilievre. The Axe the Tax mantra worked. And the new prime minister, we got a very boring prime minister to replace Justin Trudeau. His name is Mark Carney, and he's got a wonderful background. He's like the federal chair that you guys have. He's the governor of the Bank of Canada, not just for Canada, but for the UK as well. So he's got the economic smarts, and he's boring, and I think he's playing Donald Trump very well, but he's also playing the opposition very well in that a lot of the policies that Pierre Poilievre ran on as a conservative, well, Carney's just taken them on, but he's a liberal prime minister. So what we call him, if you go back to history, you remember the big long chin prime minister we had, Brian Mulroney. He was our last progressive conservative, if that makes sense to you. I know it sounds crazy, but I guess Bush called it compassionate conservatism, right? So he was a compassionate, and I'd say that's what Carney is, and that is just kind of build Pierre Poilievre. He when he ran in the election, he lost his seat. He's held that seat since the early 2000s. He lost that seat in Ottawa. He went over to Alberta, which is very conservative, and he ran in a by-election and won it. So he's still the leader. In a few weeks, he's up for a party renewal, as they call it, and the party delegates will vote where they like him or not. And if he gets over a certain threshold, he'll stay as the leader. And it looks like he will, which is much to the gladness of liberals and people who generally like Carney, and we all like him. Like he's rising in the polls. So Poilievre will just stay, and conservatism will just, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's at a certain threshold, like it is in the United States, but it's nothing like 50% as you have in the US.
Is part of his appeal that he's boring, whereas Trump is crazy? Does that make sense? Normal always looks better than crazy and stuff, you know? Is in that sense, is Trump influencing by making boring candidates look sane? Does that make sense or no?
I think he's playing the game like the Prime Minister Starmer in Britain and Macron and other European leaders. They're just he doesn't bow to him as deeply as some of these other guys, like inviting him over for a king's dinner and lavishing him with gifts. He knows how to cajole him. And, you know, the conservatives here try to say, well, if Poilievre was prime, he'd know how to play him properly. And it's like, no, I don't think so. You know, we all know what he gets like with politicians who happen to be in his party in the United States. We know what he gets with like actors who happen to cross his path, and we know the hissy fits he has. We don't need that, because we got that with that one guy, the Premier of Ontario. Remember when he brought out the ads about Ronald Reagan?
Yeah.
And it was totally accurate. Like we all know, Ronald Reagan was all about free trade with Canada and Mexico, and it's a conservative value, but all of a sudden, it's protectionism. And anyway, it's just lies and stuff like that. And I think it's just we got to play the game with Trump until he putters out. And we may have just a few months left of this nonsense, and then you guys are going to go to midterms, hopefully, if it happens. And you're going to do the wise choice of taking the power away from them, or at least what you can. Anyway,
we're going to try. Okay, David, go ahead.
I follow a couple of other Canadian cartoonists, and at one point I was following Cam Cardo, and he went ballistically right. Maybe he was like that before, but I always liked the way he drew, and then he just got very reactionary even toward me, so I stopped following him. But I wonder, is he still drawing, and are there other conservative cartoonists up there in Canada?
Well, I think the only person who knows seems to be Daryl Cagle, because he's the one who has any kind of connection with him. And I will get updates from Daryl Cagle about Cam. I've met him once at one of our conventions. He's certainly gone off the deep end with conservative stuff. I think a lot of it's driven by, I think he's very religious. He sort of turned very much conservative during the Bush years. And then he's just become very conservative, and he went under a pseudonym. And now I don't know what he's doing. As far as other cartoonists in Canada, I think depending on what chain you're working with, like if you're with Post Media, Malcolm Mays is sort of a conservative guy now, strangely, and he's like a guy who wasn't, but because he's connected with that newspaper chain, he's stuck to that. And if you're some of the tabloid cartoonists, like Andy Donato tends to be more right of center, but that's, we don't have a lot. Most of us are center. A few of us are kind of lefty, but we straddle the middle.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much. I think there's the ratio of liberal to right-leaning cartoonists pretty much anywhere is weighted in our favor.
Yeah,
Well, you guys have Ben Garrison, who I haven't seen any of his illustrious work recently. Is he still around? And where?
Yes,
Yeah, he is.
he's just got his website.
I don't know who he is. Who is this?
Ben
He's
Garrison?
He does
Yeah.
paintings of multiple figures that are all about, you've seen, I don't know if they're his, but paintings of Trump who looks like, Superman, or he's,
Oh, is he that Utah artist?
yeah, I think Wyoming, I think maybe
Miami, Utah.
I
Okay.
thought South Dakota. I thought he's a
Okay.
Dakota guy, isn't he?
Dakota. Okay.
somewhere out west.
The
Okay.
frontier.
He's got a website. I looked at it just the other day to see what he was up to, and I was not disappointed.
Okay. You guys know more cartoonists than I do, but I'm wondering because there are anti-Trump conservatives and then there's pro-Trump conservatives and stuff. Like in Canada, I'm assuming most of the conservative cartoonists are anti-Trump, I guess, or conservatives or no?
What I hear from some of the people that work for the tabloids, Sun Media, or what it used to be called, they're not even allowed to do Trump cartoons, believe it or
Oh,
not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a gal named Sue Dewar. I shouldn't really be dropping names, but she's given me some reports that any kind of criticism towards Trump is going to be heavily vetted by a Canadian newspaper owner. So,
Oh.
she just doesn't do a lot of them.
Is that similar to like what's that, Gannett News and stuff? Or what happened to Rob Rogers and stuff? Where
Yeah, it's a hedge fund. It's a hedge fund, American hedge fund run newspaper. Pittsburgh Post Gazette, I found they just died, which is shocking.
yeah,
They
Yeah,
just
they're
went out
shutting
of their
down.
business.
okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
my paper
Crazy.
is a paper.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
My paper was a Gannett paper before they gave me the axe. So
What? Yeah. Okay. Welcome back. I'm relieved all three of you came back. So, um, uh, you know, my next question, because of this Trump era, I've been very curious to read about what happened during the blacklist in the 1950s, and I learned that at that time, cartoonist Herbert Block, and Walt Kelly were two of the few Americans willing to take on Joe McCarthy during the height of the Red Scare and stuff. And I noticed with Herblock's cartoons, his cartoons were in the editorial section, so his cartoons were a lot more hard hitting. While Walt Kelly's Pogo was in the comic section, which is a more family oriented readership, and it tended to be more gentle satire and stuff. So, for the three of you, would you consider your cartoons more hard hitting satire or more gentle satire? And what are the three of your opinions on which approach to satire is most effective during this Trump era?
think uh, I think mine would be considered more hard hitting, but I generally try to temper that with some humor and not just approach it with rage. I try to. I think ridicule is the most effective form of satire that's going to work
Yeah.
on Trump and this administration, and so you can't get angry. You can't let that anger seep into your work. I think you have to. It can be hard hitting, but also funny, and I think that is for me. That's the approach that I think works the best.
Is the fact that you're avoiding anger the part is it meant as a way to step back so that you can observe a political situation with some what's the right word, with some intelligence, I guess, or with some where it's not just rage but you're making an observation.
Right. And I think that's true, but I also think anytime you get into a debate with somebody or an argument with somebody and you lose your temper, that's what they wanted. And that's,
Okay.
you lose at that point. So um, if you can come at it with a sense of humor, um, I think that's going to be more effective. That's my take on it. And I don't always succeed. Sometimes, you just get angry and you draw some angry thing with blood spatters everywhere, whatever. And I think it's going to turn people off.
Yeah. Okay. David, Graeme, how about you two?
I one thing I tend to do is I try to focus on more of a much larger thing than a specific incident. A lot of my cartoons are more about the general mood, or I mean, it's not that I don't draw Trump a lot and that I make fun of him and criticize him. I guess mine would be a little bit more gentle satire, but the humor part is very, very necessary, I think. So many times people say, "Oh, that cartoon wasn't funny." It's like, well, it's an editorial cartoon. It's not Peanuts,
Yeah.
and so there's a certain amount of humor that you can inject into a satirical situation. And, you know, I don't know necessarily that I'm not just speaking to my crowd. I don't know that a cartoon has ever changed anybody's mind about anything. But I feel like that's where I go with it. It's a little bit more gentle with humor, like what Rick says.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Graeme?
Yeah, I'm very much like these two guys. I'm the first thing that comes to mind is it's got to be funny. Usually go for a visual that's gonna jump out and be funny. And then I used to. An editor said you're hammering over the head of the reader, and people don't like it, and I get it. I think the things that work the best are the ones that people can relate to from their day-to-day business. So the best cartoons are the ones that deal with the everyday ideas of the cost of living and that sort of thing that they see around them. That gets to that. And I'm in Canada. Trump is a foreign leader, so my priority is to go after, the local politicians. So obviously I'm sort of out of step because I'm in a syndicate in the United States, and so you'll see my stuff up there against all these like this wall of Trump cartoons, and I'm making fun of my premier and like, who the hell is this guy and why is it here and what does it matter?
Who is this guy?
But it's like, this is what our job is. Our job is like, you have a whole ton of people there in the United States that are doing, pinpointing the president, but you also have governors that need to be covered, and they're a very important aspect of everyone's life. And some of you do a very good job of going after them. And I got the same thing. My thing is target the people who are closer to you, and then go after the guy who's everyone's talking about. Like, that's the other thing. Everyone knows about what's going on with Trump here. They're less informed with what's going on with the provincial affairs. And I think that's a sad thing, because it just means the distractive nature of Donald Trump is working. He's the guy that everyone's talking about. And sadly, there's no way of getting, there's what's that TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, like how we've all been diagnosed with that illness. But I'm thinking, well, if you're not deranged about what's going on by this megalomaniac and his crazy group of people in the White House, then there's something maybe a little bit deranging you if you're not like affected. You have to know the history of the United States and previous presidents. We are in like strange, as David said, we're in scary times right now.
Graeme, I think
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think they've proven you don't have to know American history in order to succeed.
Yeah. Well, they're actively trying to suppress history and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just was reading, and when we were on the break, I was just reading where the Smithsonian has removed references to Trump's impeachments. It's real Orwellian rewriting of history that they're trying to do. But the good news is, like you say, he'll be gone hopefully soon, and we can take his name off everything and put everything back like it was.
Yeah.
What about the Arch? The
Oh,
Arch
go
of
ahead.
Triumph that he's building. What happens
Yeah,
to that? Does that come down, or does that
Yeah.
stay there like a Napoleonic era kind of thing? In 200 years, it's still going to be there.
I kind of believe it when I see it. I just don't think they can build something like that in the time that they have left, and they haven't even started. And I don't think the ballroom's going to get built either, honestly. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and
David.
I hope they tear the ballroom down. Whoever comes in, if it does get built, I hope they tear it down and put the East Wing back like it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. David, were you going to say something or?
That was what you were saying, Graeme, about drawing about what's going on right there with you, as opposed
Yeah,
with my newspaper, they only want local cartoons, and
yeah,
they want stuff about who's running for office in the city or the district, what's going on with city policies. And so the stuff I do for Trump about Trump and other international and national issues is for social media,
yeah,
and for the AAEC website. So I think in many ways, the local stuff is as important, if not more important, than what we say about national and international issues.
hmm
Because that's the stuff that the people that live next door to me or across the city, that's what affects them the most. And that's also what they say about voting. Vote for, it comes from the bottom and goes up. You got to vote for the sheriff, the county commissioner, the city council person first, and you've got to change things where you are before things can change in a larger arena.
David, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So I was with Gannett when I got laid off, and they completely did away with our editorial page and our editorial page editor. And there's no more cartoons. I was one of three who got laid off at the same time. Mark Streeter and my buddy up in Ohio, Nate Beeler. We all got laid off same time.
Yeah.
They just did away with the editorial pages completely. And you're telling me you still have an editorial page? And
Well, initially, what I was told was that Gannett only wanted 1 day a week for an
okay,
editorial. And we don't have a letters editor or an editorial page editor anymore, like when I first started there. But the executive publisher, executive editor of the paper, uh, sort of came up through the paper, and she contacted me and said, well, Gannett has given us the option to where we can have as many as 2 pages, editorial pages a week.
okay,
So that's Wednesday and Sunday. And I draw for those 2 days. And when another round of layoffs came through from Gannett, she contacted me and said, I really want you to stay. What do you need? And so I said, well, it's been 15 years since I got a raise, and I'd like to keep doing it for you guys. And she said, you got it. So I mean, I'm freelance. I don't have benefits or anything. So I don't know how much longer it'll go on, but until then, I'm kind of set.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's pretty rare these days.
Very rare, yeah.
Can I ask a question? Actually, going back to David, and actually, Rick, you can get into this as well. But you're in Asheville, and if memory serves me right, your city was sort of kind of half destroyed by a flood. So
Yeah.
that is I'm curious, and to the same degree to Rick, you're on the coast of Florida, and so you get a lot of like these horrible these storms that are coming through that are like one in a century kind of storms, so they're happening every other year, it seems. So does that whole thing sort of like become part of politics? I mean, is climate change believed in Asheville or on the coast of Florida in these red districts? Or is it just seen as, well, we're beyond hope now, so just forget about all these multilateral kind of like agreements that we're part of? Who cares about climate change? Have we just given up and then we're just going to have floods like this all the time?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. Yeah.
Rick,
In Florida, I think you can't deny what's going on, and the insurance companies are pulling out of Florida, and so it's very hard to get your home insured. And different parts of the coast are eroding. But having said that, the policies don't reflect that. And the hurricanes come through, and they just rebuild everything back, and that's kind of how it goes. So I think the official policy is denial. Honestly, we got Ron DeSantis as governor, and so I think the official, but they have to know what's going on. They have to see the effects. Thankfully, we haven't had a hurricane. We didn't have a single one last year. We didn't have a single landfalling hurricane in Florida last year, and that was nice. And the one that hit North Carolina came right by me, barely missed where I am. We got some pine needles down, and it went up and hit Augusta, Georgia, where I lived, and demolished Augusta and demolished Western North Carolina. But we were thankfully on the weak side of it, and sorry about that, David.
Yeah, I'm sure your mojo pushed it up toward us.
We prayed it to the side.
Yeah, well, it was Helene, and
Yes.
I'm in the mountains, and so we're pretty well protected from things like tornadoes and hurricanes, and even snowstorms that come through from the west get stopped by the Appalachians. So we have a fairly moderate climate here. We have 4 seasons, but it's pretty moderate. Helene did a lot more damage, not to Asheville so much, but to most of the rest of Western North Carolina. But it is definitely something that I've drawn about. And there's 2 other editorial cartoonists in my city that work for an alternative paper. And for a city this size to have 3 cartoonists working is pretty unusual.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Do you know each other? Do you know each other?
We know each other, and I like their work. We participated in panels, but we were without water for almost 2 months, and so that definitely affects the politics. Right now, we're in a mayoral and a city council race. We have 3 city council seats up for election, and we have 20 people running for those seats. There's a lot of discontent with how the city's run and how things are leaning toward developers. And the cost of living went up so much after Helene. It's supposedly a once in a lifetime event, but we have right on the river, which the French Broad River, which runs through the city, is what caused all the damage. And we had, over the last 10 years, had done this whole river arts district, sort of like down in Chattanooga. All these old factories were being split up into artist studios, and there was music venues and restaurants, all that down there. And most of that stuff just got wiped out. And to my mind, it's like, okay, now it's time to move. If you're going to do it again, go to a higher ground. But a lot of these things are being rebuilt right there. And
it's going to happen again.
It's going to happen again. And it may not be as severe, but it flooded before. It's going to flooded then, and it's going to flood again. Okay. I don't get it.
Yeah. And I guess just to bring Angelo into it, you're in fire country too. So we've seen a ton of crazy things happening there. Brian Fies, I remember I saw a great presentation by him where his house was burnt down. He's a cartoonist. Oh, yeah. So it's everywhere we go. There's increasing crazy weather and just effects of the warming world that is just being ignored, and who cares?
Isn't that part of that's part of the culture you're talking about? Trump's policies hurt his supporters economically, but it doesn't seem to touch them. Trump's policies hurt them in terms of social services and the cuts, but it doesn't seem to affect their support of him. Trump's policies affect climate change, but it doesn't, no matter what the weather damage, it doesn't. I'm
Well,
asking you,
like
I
Trump
don't,
said, he loves the uneducated. And that is basically his base.
Yeah.
And
True,
so,
very true.
so it's like until their trailer gets washed away, or they have some life attacking disease that was covered under the ACA and is no longer covered. It's like until the state of Kansas is destroyed by a nuclear meltdown, people aren't going to go, oh, well, it doesn't affect me. It's like, so it affects those bad people. And it's like we've all said before, it's a cult. And if he said drink the Kool-Aid, they would.
yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, guys. I thought you guys had the answers, but you.
Graeme, I've been getting in my Facebook feed, I've been getting a lot of notices about seeing if I qualify to move to Canada.
Yeah.
Have you seen those, Rick?
Yeah.
We're cutting down our immigration rate. Just so you know.
I'm thinking about
you'll
it.
have to be heavily vetted. We don't need cartoonists in this country.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a drummer too, so maybe that'll help.
Yeah. Well, here, let me ask my next question and stuff. But after I ask my question, my microwave oven is beeping out. In my break, I was trying to heat up my drink and stuff. So after I ask this question, I'm going to quickly go to my microwave oven. But okay, this question
We
is.
can't hear it, by the way. We can't hear you on it.
Oh, you can't?
We
Oh,
can't
okay.
hear. No.
Yeah. I'm just curious. And this is a question I don't have very much knowledge about, but I noticed in Facebook for the past few months there have been occasionally been these fierce debates among cartoonists about AI, and I'm asking this out of ignorance because until I read those debates I didn't really think much about it. But for the three of you, what are your thoughts on the ethics of using AI to either create or to animate your cartoons and stuff? And Graeme, I notice in your YouTube page you occasionally animate your cartoons, I guess. And I think Rick, you said you occasionally experiment. David, I don't know if you've used AI, but could you tell me your thoughts on it? But I'm going to disappear for a second. You guys talk among yourselves. I'm just going to get my cup from the microwave oven and stuff.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I'll just say that I've just abandoned it. Actually, I think I became addicted to the 5-second little manipulations that would happen to our work when you fed it through a generator, because they are amazing, and you can piece them together and you can come up with like this interesting kind of animated thing, because we're not taking any work away from anyone really. It's just who's going to animate your cartoons other than yourself? And you'll spend a whole weekend doing it for like 15 seconds. And we've all done that. So this was kind of like a groundbreaking thing when I saw it through Hailu, I think it was the company. And so I started doing that with my work. And then I started sharing it with my newspaper, and my newspaper was sort of attracted by it. And then they sent it off to the lawyers. The lawyers took a look at some of the T's and C's from these companies, and they found out that, yeah, you know what, probably not a good idea, because the terms and conditions say that they actually own the property once they put it through. So probably not a good idea. That's not just with that. It's CapCut is another one that I use a lot, and I still use it. And I shouldn't be, because once you use those services, they take ownership. But that said, I use AI for other things, but I don't want to get into that. But I know Rick has been using AI and has done some very fascinating work. So over to you, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I've played with. So when I lost my job and I went looking for anything I could find, I used to be a staff artist, and I noticed that all these jobs, I didn't know any of the software. And so I was completely inexperienced and couldn't get a job doing any of that stuff. And so when AI came along, I was like, I am going to learn this from the ground floor. This seems like the next thing. And so I'm going to educate myself. And I've done a lot of stuff with it. I've played with it, not in my cartooning work. I did one cartoon early on where I used it to make a point about AI, and that's the extent of how I've used it. But I've played with a lot of different AI uh, software programs, and so I understand the arguments against it, which is why I don't use it in my work. So I have done some other things with it and made some AI slop and some little 10-second videos. Most recently, Sora came out, and so I was just playing with the concept of more not cartoons, but just like if I had a concept of that could work as a cartoon, I might churn out a quick little AI video. And so I was doing that. And so I did one that was just a little baby. The woman was saying, "Oh, you're going to say your first words." It was very photorealistic. And the baby I mean, like a newborn infant. And the baby says, "Release the Epstein files," which was pretty funny when you saw it. And I posted that on Facebook. Again, not a cartoon. It looked like a real video. And I went from 5,000 followers to 16,000 followers in 10 days, just from that video alone. And I thought, well, I'm gonna sort of leverage this. I had just launched the Substack, and I thought I'm gonna leverage this and pick up all these 16,000 followers onto my Substack, and that did not happen. And so I haven't done much with it lately, and I understand the arguments against it. I still play with it from time to time. Well, like this morning, I used it to make a point. Some guy in an argument was saying he posted some fake thing, arrest record of Renee Good, and I said that's obviously fake. That's AI. You can look at it and tell that. And he didn't believe me, and so I took his photo, turned it into mugshots, and said, "Well, here's your arrest record photos. What did you get arrested for?" Just to make a point to this guy that it could be done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shut him down at that point.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. David, do you have any opinions on this? Have you tried it or no?
Well, I can see using it for animation, but the whole premise of AI is that it mines other artists' work to get its parameters. So, I'm very old school. I'm older than everybody here, and I grew up with Conrad and Herblock and David Lowe, and that whole grease pencil sort of before color was ever a thing for newspapers. So the whole idea of, I tried a Wacom, and to me, I've got my Bristol right here, ready to go. And the idea of, the pencil on the paper and inking it, I have almost no color sense. So the whole idea of trying to do something with AI, I had one cartoon that, like Rick's, that just really took off. And a couple of days ago on Facebook, it said, "Here's what your cartoon would look like if we colored it for you." And damn, it looked really good, but it was nothing that I could do.
Wow.
And so I just.
But I love your style, though. I love your style.
Well, it's an old school style that it's like I'm the old dog that doesn't want to learn any new tricks.
Well, the thing that
Oh no, go ahead. I just want to apologize to you. I did a black and white. You have a style where you do black and white, but you have a spot of red. I kind of did that last year for one of my cartoons, so I want to apologize for adopting your style for the cartoon. But it's a great style,
not AI.
Yeah. But I love your work. I'm sort of old school too. My style is more like those old children's books. You do the cross hatching and then you do the watercolor overlay and stuff.
I think both of our work is immediately recognizable just because we're kind of doing something that most cartoonists now are, on a pad, color it, beautiful work, but it's, we're just stuck in our own thing.
Yeah, I think I interrupted somebody.
Oh, I
Rick?
was just going to say the thing that kills me about some of these AI cartoons that I've seen, and I've seen them on Instagram. A couple of guys have popped up and they're churning out this AI crap. Terrible concepts, obviously done by AI, and they get thousands and tens of thousands of likes on Instagram
Yeah.
and Facebook. And I don't know if these are bots, interacting with bots or what, but we're slaving doing this work, and you see some guy come churn out some AI
Yeah.
crap and get, tens of thousands of interactions, and it's discouraging.
And a lot of them are, they're not creative types, but they're popular on Substack. Like they can write very well. There's a lot of them, and they're now illustrating their commentaries with these sloppy, you can tell them instantly because they're very good renderings of the politicians, but they're grabbing like all of our work and basically mishmashing it into a very accurate portrayal of, say, Marjory Taylor Greene or Donald Trump, and they look good, but then you see the font style and everything, and it's just you can tell that they kind of like it's not hand drawn, and it's got that kind of yellowy look to it, and it's just, I think people are starting to get over it, and you're seeing people comment underneath, this is AI slop. Why don't you like start posting like human made cartoons? Like, and I'm on the verge of just amassing a bunch of them and just putting them on one of my pages and saying, stop supporting this stuff. It's garbage. It's produced by people who have no business making them. I know that it looks like sour grapes and everything, but if we don't combat this, then we're going to perish. And that, you're right, Rick. They're getting tons of
their ideas aren't even
shares.
Their ideas aren't even good. They suck. I mean, they're not clever.
Totally.
They're the most, hit you over the head, straightforward, and I cannot for the life of me figure out who's liking this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have 8 minutes left for this video, so let me ask my last question and stuff. I'm gonna ask over the past few years, I keep hearing this mantra that editorial cartoons should comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. How do you guys how do your cartoons apply that mantra during this Trump era?
Pretty easy with Trump. I mean, look at what he's doing. He's Mr. Well, he's like an old time president from the 1880s, and he's like a king. He's like, what are we in the 1830s? Like Monroe Doctrine. I mean, he's out for the interest of the tech bro. Yeah, tech bros. Anyone who's got millions of dollars. Greenland isn't about security. It's not even about critical minerals, because critical minerals is with the green economy. He wants to see his name on an island. That's what it's at. And if there's oil in there, if there's coal to get, bonus for his bros in the economy. It's so easy. He's.
Well, I go a step further and say he's a cartoon villain. Is what he is. It's almost to the point where it's hard to satirize a guy who's that villainous. The Daily Show, they were talking about how, when we went into Iraq, at least we didn't say straight up it was about oil, and they did a clip where that's all he's talking about. It's about the oil. It's about the oil. He doesn't even try to hide it. They
don't try to hide anything anymore. All out in the open.
Yeah. Well, did you hear what Miller said? That, basically, rules don't really matter. It's all about who has the most power and stuff.
Yeah.
And Trump saying, it's my morality that determines what's going to happen.
I know. Yeah. What a joke. We're screwed.
Crazy. Yeah, but you could have like a big, powerful part of the hemisphere, and in time you'll have us too. So, I'll be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't even know what it is, but I'll be singing it with you or saying
Canada.
Yeah.
we're going to do our best to keep that from happening. I can tell you that. So,
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this very briefly because I know we're running out of time, but we were on that path. We were integrating so much with the American economy, and we hope to keep the free trade thing going. That's what Carney's trying to do right now, is to soften things so that that whole thing is re-ratified. And we were on that path. But the thing about Trump is he's galvanized us so much against him that we are now a nationalist country. We're all about, and all these other countries are the same way. We're anti-Americanism is something that I've loathed in the past, but now it's like, screw the Americans right now.
hey, we get it. We get it.
And I hate that, but I hate that because, as I say, in 3 years, I hope that you guys come to your senses and elect a proper president and a proper party to rule. So.
I will say that it seems like things are starting to turn, whether it's Marjory Taylor Greene and other Republicans starting to go, hey, wait a minute, this is fucked up. To, even in my city, which is however many hundreds of miles away from Minneapolis, that night there was 500 people out protesting. And if you saw the pictures from Minneapolis, all across the country. So I think there's a certain amount of waking up that we have a certain amount of power that we can exert. And I'm betting on the midterms that things are going to happen, that we'll have a majority again, and we can start undoing some of this damage.
Yeah.
Will there be midterms, though? Let me just, I know if we don't have much time, but will there be midterms? That's
the other question that people are saying there may not be. I don't know that we could, they could push that through, but we will have to see.
I think there'd be rioting in the streets if they tried to do that.
Yeah.
Rick, did you have anything to add about that or no?
I just totally agree with what both these guys just said. So, I with David, like I had said earlier, I have a glimmer of hope that things are starting to turn. So I have to cling to that.
Okay. I hope you both are right. I'm not sure. I have periods of hope, but then I have periods of despair. So I fluctuate. That's why I pick my spots on what I follow and stuff, because sometimes I just have to. I only focus on a few issues because I'm trying to focus on what's going on with the Filipino American community. But then something pops up that I have to, like Venezuela. If we get into a quagmire, I can't avoid that and stuff.
Right. No, you're right. That's right.
Yeah, and stuff. So
or take a walk in the woods.
Yeah. So I try to protect my mental health because I know this is a marathon and stuff. It's not.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So okay. Well, on that happy note, I want to thank all three of you for taking the time to talk to me today. So thank all three of you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Angelo. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you guys.